go to that. I think, yeah. That, do I look okay? I never really care. That, oh, better before. Oh, it wasn't. Well, I'll figure it out eventually. I've only been. Is that good?
No, because you can't see the chessboard.
Oh, I
So,
can't see the
you're so
chessboard.
focused on yourself.
Where's the chessboard?
I don't know. Hold
Farts. Oh, well, that was weird. I was just hovering over something that blocked
on.
it.
Technology to the rescue. I don't know. I didn't do actually. I did literally nothing.
Okay. Anyway, for that muddled beginning, hello, hello. And as I rub my eye, because I think I have an eyelash stuck somewhere, super awesome. Welcome to another episode of Pepper Plays. We're on the chess run here. So if you tuned in last week, I it was like the first time I've ever played chess, I think ever. I mean, I've certainly watched it and watched Diva watch it and talk about it, and so he is teaching me how to play. So yeah, um, I think this go round I'm going to be playing a really easy computer opponent, and Diva is what exactly is your plan, Diva?
Well, my plan really is to just let you play and then give you pointers along the way
Oh,
and
okay.
answer questions and whatnot.
Answer questions and whatnot. So I have my handy dandy notes from last week. So I had to dig those out. They were under a couple other things on my very unorganized desk, which is not normal for me. Hmm. Today I'm enjoying a nice white tea. It is delightful, steeping in here. It's very, very nice on this weird, dreary. It's a dreary day out today,
Yeah.
at least where we are. Hi, sweet dog. I'm not giving you anything. You may go lay down. You will be rewarded for your good behavior, which probably won't last very long. Anyway, so yeah, so if you're tuning in for the first time, I always like to give just sometimes a little recap about what Pepper Plays is. I'm Pepper. I play video games, obviously. But I play video games never played before. There was a time in there where we were playing a lot of Diablo 3, which is totally fine. I mean, it's in new seasons, excuse me, and stuff, and so I've never played those seasons, but I've played that game loads. And absolutely not, sweet dog. And I have a dog nudging my arm at every opportunity that she can because she wants something that she's not getting because when she begs, she doesn't get what she wants. I know you're super cute. Go lay down. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, so I play video games I never played before. At Diva's behest, he was hoping and actually, I think, succeeded so far in getting me to play different video games because before I was really strictly a Diablo 3, and that's really it. Maybe some Nintendo, some Mario, stuff like that, but didn't branch out. And I have a lot. You can follow us on all the socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I should get better at posting eventually. And of course, we have a YouTube channel also listed at Peppertaculars. You can go there, catch up on old videos, see my progress as a gamer, um, you know, whatever, float your boat or not. So, yeah, so we're playing chess. Okay, so when I'm looking at the chessboard,
Yep.
I know only because I've watched loads of movies. There's my whole chess knowledge is movies, so you can laugh all you like. Really good chess players out there, but you got to start somewhere. So that's my motto. Got to start somewhere. Um, when looking at a chessboard, I know there are like loads of plays, right? They're all specialized, like they even have their own names, right?
Correct.
Right. And like this play can lead to your opponent doing that. And like this is why chess is such a thinker's game, because you're always thinking several moves ahead, correct?
No.
Oh,
So it's actually a super common, not well. So yes and no, I guess, because it's more about thinking about. Because the problem with trying to think several moves ahead is it requires like those steps to actually happen,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes you can actually do that, but a lot of the time you sort of get pigeonholed into thinking only one or two steps ahead, because if you think too far ahead, then it only takes one play for your opponent to do something different to completely screw it all up.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
so it's more about understanding the relationship the pieces have to each other, more so than trying to play 5 steps ahead and knowing what your opponent's going to do, because you don't always know what your opponent's going to do.
Right. Okay. And so seeing this opening move by my very dashing opponent, Martin, what do you think is his
Yes.
strategy? You don't know.
I mean,
Because
generally they tell you to move your pawns forward. Generally, you also want to move your pawns. The first pawn you place like 2 forward, and it'll tell you what the opening is in the top right there. I think it's
queen,
the
yeah, it's queen's
queen's
pawn
pawn.
on
Yeah.
opening.
And then there's like a whole like back and forth for the first couple moves that defines like the queen's pawn's opening as
And
a
pawns can
style. But
only move forward in rank and can they move rank and file forward, or this
nope, they can only
only
move in
move?
their file,
Okay.
except when they capture. So generally the response to a pawn moving forward is to stop it with another pawn, because you don't really want pawns to advance
So I should
too
be
far.
so I should
So
move my queen pawn,
so I would meet his queen pawn with your queen pawn.
because then he can't continue to move forward. So he'd
Yeah.
moved his king pawn, right?
Yeah, which apparently is an inaccuracy
Oh, where does that say that?
in the top right corner, right under his face.
D5 is a book move.
Oh,
Where?
it's a book move. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What does
I have
that mean?
your stream is very low res for me, so
Oh, sorry.
I made an assumption based on a color. Um, it means that that's probably the third move in the queen's pawn opening.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong at this point with mirroring him. So I would move your king's pawn to this to e6. Yep.
Here? Right, because then he could have captured my pawn. Okay, so he's moved his bishop.
This is the point where I would probably the
So
bishop
can only move diagonally on their color,
correct.
but they
So
can move forwards
his
and backwards.
correct an
Okay.
infinite number of squares that they can. So right now, if you're looking at the board, his bishop is threatening your h7 pawn. Not really a big deal, because your h7 pawn is guarded by the rook.
Okay.
So this is a move that you don't really need to spend too much time thinking about.
Because if he moves, sorry,
Keep going.
I was going to say, because if he moves his bishop to that position, then my rook can just take his bishop.
Correct.
Okay.
And that would be considered a bad trade, because you would
Right.
be trading one pawn for a rook or for a bishop, which
Right.
is a very bad trade.
Not a good trade.
And so at this point, because what he is doing is he is trying to activate his pieces from behind the pawns, because when your pieces are behind pawns, like they can't do anything.
Right.
They just sort of exist. And so he got his bishop out there. I would suggest moving a knight.
And the knights move rank and file, right? Only.
Correct. So that's a little misleading, because every piece can move rank and file.
Well, but yes, every piece can move rank and file to some degree.
Yeah.
But I was going to go on to say that, per my notes that I took last week, that they can move up 2 and over 1, or up 1 and down 2.
Correct.
Okay. And they can bypass all pieces without capture.
Correct.
So which knight should I move, my G or my B?
So your B knight can move over to C6, which would threaten his D4 pawn, although that would not necessarily be the best move.
Right.
You could also move to your G8 knight to H6, which sets him up to move forward up to G4, G4 later, which sort of puts some pressure on the pawns over there. A lot of this is mostly just trying to get your pieces out there. You could also put your G8 knight to F6 in anticipation of him trying to move his G2 pawn. There are, however, counters to all of these moves.
Oh, it just said C5 is best.
Well, so that was good, but C5 was best. So where's C5?
Oh, C5 is the bishop.
No, 5 is 3 rows up. So it wanted you to move that pawn.
Oh, this pawn.
Yeah, it wanted you to move that pawn up to C5, which is a weird move, and I don't quite know why it likes that, because then he would just take your pawn, and then you'd have this random pawn hanging out. That's a weird move, but it's the computer is a little hard to gauge because the computer is thinking in terms of best moves. So it's thinking that that's the best move because then the next computer would have a best move, and then there's a best move to that, and then there's a best move to that, and so there's especially in this early game, like as long as your move was good, like I wouldn't think about it any more than that.
Okay.
So now you have a couple of options. What I sort of predicted was correct in that moving your knight now puts him in a position where you can attack his back line. Depending on if you wanted to trade a bishop for a knight. So you could put your F6 knight over to G4. So here, let's do this. When I suggest things, no, don't click on those guys. Right click on the spaces that I tell you where it's going to move.
Okay.
Because it'll highlight it. So you can also draw arrows by right clicking and dragging. So like if you right click and drag from the knight, you can like drag him over to or drag an arrow over to F4.
Okay.
Well, I didn't mean F4. I actually meant G4, but that's also not F4. And then left clicking on a spot out in nowhere gets rid of everything. Just make sure you're not left clicking on pieces, because that's how like NL misclicks a lot. You also have the option to move your knight to E4. I don't know that does anything. And then you just straight up run the risk of losing him to
the bishop,
which would be a trade because he's technically guarded, but I don't know that actually does you any good. I'm going to bet you that the computer is going to say that it really wants you to get that C7 pawn up there, but I'm going to suggest you move your B knight, your B file knight.
My B file knight?
With the expectation that the computer really wants you to move your C7 pawn up to C5, you can set up your knight into A6 to guard that pawn when you move it.
So here?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah, because then that guards, like if you could then go up 1 and over 2 from where you just clicked, he can then guard. So then now his guard is C5, right? Because from that position, the knight can move either up 2 over 1 or over 2 and up 1. So he can guard. So from that position, from the new position, he's covering C5 and B4, right? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do this as this turn's move, hopefully he doesn't do anything to screw it up too bad. You can next turn move your C pawn up to C5, and he's guarded.
So it just said N4 is
It wanted you to move to your knight.
knight.
To what? To what for?
It just says I did NE4.
Yeah, so that means knight to E6.
Knight
So you
to
moved your knight to E6.
right.
Is what that notation means. What it wanted you to do was knight to E4. Is that what
E4.
it says?
Yeah. Really?
Oh, so it wanted you to do what I said originally and put it right next to the bishop. Weird. Yeah, so that was one of the moves I suggested. I just didn't think it would be that useful. But the computer liked it.
Why would that be best though? Because then it would just be a trade bishop. He would take my knight, right?
It's a phenomenal question.
How is me sacrificing a knight at this stage in the game better?
I don't know. Because you have to remember the computer thinks an infinite number of turns ahead because it does all those calculations every time you play a piece. Which is exactly what you shouldn't be doing because it's just going to scramble your brain.
Right.
So now I would take a play from that move a couple moves ago and march your C7 pawn forward all the way up. Because now he's covered by your knight. So if he wants to take him, he doesn't have to. Oh, that was a good move.
So
But it said C5 was best.
oh, so he wanted him to take he wanted his pawn to take my pawn. Right?
Yeah. But this is a little weird.
So and he's moved his knight to F3.
Yeah. So now, because the idea is that you could move your pawn forward and he would try to take, which then you could retake with your knight.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're in this weird situation where you're going to end up because his knight is going to take. So what should happen is you take his D4 pawn with your C5 pawn. He would then either take your pawn with his either E3 pawn or his F3 knight. This is why I wish I could have connected because then I could have drawn on the board.
Oh.
um,
Is there something that would let you do that, like a outside program or something?
this is an outside program, and you're supposed to be able to like watch your friends play chess and
Hey there,
interact.
Aaron. Thanks
It
for the
just
like.
doesn't. It does not let me. That's what I was trying to figure out. That I eventually gave up on. And then you have that knight sort of hanging out there, which he can't really do anything. But then you could put pressure on his bishop by moving your knight to C5. I would just do the pawn trade.
What was that?
Do the pawn trade.
Oh, I should take his pawn.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because if you spend too much time playing a defensive game, you can very easily get yourself sort of caught up.
Oh, so he just moved forward.
Yep. Yeah, he did. That's an interesting move.
But and the computer says it's an inaccuracy.
Yeah. Because C4 is best. C4 is best.
I feel
What?
like a little I don't know. I've been reading too many dystopian novels.
Well, so the computer wanted him to move his C pawn up.
Right.
I'm assuming to free up something, maybe to get the queen access.
Aaron says take his other pawn now. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, he's absolutely
E3.
right. That's exactly what I would have said.
E3. So
yeah. Try again. Look at your numbers.
Right, this guy, right?
Yep. Because now you're up a pawn. You're up 2 pawns. What is he doing?
Well, the computer said that was best, the move he just made with that pawn.
I disagree. I really disagree. Why would you do that? Because now you just take it with your knight. What's guarding the knight? I'm missing something. I hate these kind of moves. So why would you not take his g4 pawn with your knight? Because not only does it remove another pawn, it also guards your e3 pawn.
Well, because then his knight can't take my knight because he can't move that way.
Correct. Yeah, the knight's sort of dead in the water over there. He's not doing a whole lot.
Nothing. Knight looks best.
Yeah. God, I hate it because there's something
So it's
missing, and I don't know what it is. But
so it's that move?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
We'll see what he does to it. He'll probably move his rook. That's what I would do.
Oh, moved his
Nope.
queen.
Marched his queen.
Well, because
now I would reinforce your knight, either with your f pawn or your h pawn. Because if I had to guess, he's trying to march his queen over to the g file. I would not use your g pawn. So you want to put a pawn so that if something takes your knight, you can take it with a pawn.
that?
Yeah, either that or h5, because h5 clears up some room for your rook, but f5 gives you that specific pawn a bunch of support as well. Oh, it didn't. It did not like that. Queen
said
to
that was
f6.
Yeah, well, you just said my move was a blunder.
I know. That's what I just said. Why did it not want you to do that? Why did it want you to move queen to f6? Queen to f6.
That's
Oh, well, because it would have threatened his rook. I would do that now, actually.
queen to f6.
Nope, I would not do that now. Nope, that was.
So this is f6, right?
Yep, I would not do that now.
So I would not. This move is not good now.
It's what it wanted you to do, and then he sort of preemptively moved his rook out of the way. Because technically, if he would have left his rook in a1, you could have gotten 3 free pieces out of that.
Oh.
Because if he had not moved his rook out of the way, you would have gotten his rook, his knight, and his bishop with your queen.
Got it.
So I can see why queen to f6 is considered the best move.
Okay.
I'm a little annoyed that it thought that f5 was an inaccuracy, though.
And it didn't say inaccuracy, it just said a blunder.
Oh, a blunder. A blunder is worse. A blunder is the worst.
Oh.
Like, blunders are game-changing moves.
Okay, well.
Not in your favor.
Let's go.
But I still don't really understand why. So, I don't know.
Jono Sabe?
So the problem now is if he moves his rook, you can't take it with your queen because it's now being protected by that bishop.
By his bishop here.
Nope, by his black square bishop.
By
His
that
black square bishop is so if you had moved your queen to f6
here.
Yeah. You can't march it forward anymore because of because his bishop is guarding b2.
a5. So Aaron thinks, is that a move?
You can't move the a2 pawn.
Because the knight's there.
Yeah.
His pawn takes it, then move queen out. Should I move my b pawn?
I'm sort of in favor of moving the queen. It's just figuring out where to go.
She can go anywhere she wants.
Yeah.
Can she move multiple spaces in a turn?
Every piece can move an infinite, not in a turn, but any piece can move an infinite number of spaces in a single direction. except for pawns and knights.
Well, you can't say any, because that's not the case. It's not any.
Well, they're special.
So where am I moving my queen?
I would almost move your queen to b6.
Here?
Yeah. I don't know, though. Maybe not. Because you don't want to move it to, like, places you can't move it, a5 and g5, because that'll just lose you your queen.
Yeah.
She could castle, but she'd have to get her bishop out of there first. And that just sort of seems like a wasted move. Oh, that's not true. You could bishop to d6, which gives you a little castling room and sets you up to attack
Which
the
bishop? My C
F
or my
pawn,
F?
your F bishop.
To D6?
Yeah, because then you can take out that pawn, and he's sort of safe in that little nook.
So that's where you want me to go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so it liked that and wanted knight to f2.
Knight to F2.
Oh, shoot. That would have been a way better move. So it wanted your G knight to move up to f2. I didn't even see that. So your G knight over to f2 is what it wanted you to do.
Oh, to take that pawn?
No, f2.
Oh. Okay.
Because it's guarded by your pawn, which means the queen's not going to take it, and the king can't take it, and it sets up his rook to be taken. So it sets up a split.
Oh, okay.
Which means he's either going to lose a bishop or a rook. What an interesting move.
Oh, I love castling.
Yeah, he's trying to finagle that rook down there. I don't know how to stop that.
So where does he want to funnel his rook?
I mean, do you see him moving it over? Like
I
he's taking it
did.
one square at a time.
Yeah, but he can move rank and
He's just
file,
trying
so
to.
he's just coming down B.
We can't because there's a pawn there. Zone tight. Zone tight.
Know where that came from.
You can make it over there. Yeah, the knight move still does look good.
Okay, so here's my knight. I'm moving it here.
Yeah, I think that is a good move.
Oh,
but it doesn't like that. What
it's
did
a
it like?
mistake. B.
Bishop to f4.
Bishop to.
Oh, yeah.
Bishop
it wanted
to
you
F.
to take that. It wanted you to take the pawn that I set you up to take last turn. But it gives you a free rook.
So now what do I do?
Take his rook.
With what?
Unless you see there's only one piece that can take his rook. Unless you see that knight doing something nasty, which I don't.
I don't see.
So where are his rooks?
His rooks are here in the corner.
Yep.
Oh, so I'm taking this rook.
Correct.
So.
Which is the whole point of moving the knight over there.
That rook?
Because he's giving you a free rook. Yep, that rook.
Not this turn. Next turn, his knight gets nasty.
I don't think that's true, because anywhere he moves is guarded. Like his knight, G6 is guarded, F7 is guarded, D7 is guarded, and C6 is guarded. Like I don't know where he can go that actually puts any threat on anything.
Well, but
I
didn't you?
suppose he could go to C4, but then like you just move your bishop.
So this is the move I should take.
Well, so what what Aaron's pointing out is that the knight is going to move forward.
The bishop takes the pawn.
Which bishop, though? Oh, he only has one. No, he has two.
Yeah.
Which bishop? Because are you talking about the E pawn or the F pawn? Because the F pawn is guarded, so I'm assuming you mean the E pawn. Which is a little annoying, but I don't know that that makes up for losing a rook. It does sort of strand your knight in the corner.
D3 moves up, maybe.
I don't see it. I don't think that would be.
What, that bishop?
Yeah. Yeah, I would just take the rook. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
so I said that is best.
yeah, and it wanted the kingside castle is your next best objective.
This
The
one?
crap part is and he moved his king. Why would you do that?
Hey, Richard, thanks for the like.
Just pull your knight back.
What am I doing? This?
Yeah, put him right back where he was. Why was he trying to take with the king? That's a terrible idea. Like taking that pawn was the absolute right move.
Well, he says then that frees his queen to strike.
Yeah, no, Aaron's right. Because he should have taken that pawn, but he didn't. Which means you can just move your knight right back to where he was, and that saves your knight.
Here.
Yeah.
The computer liked that move.
Yeah.
He said that was excellent.
Because this is also a split. So what you did was, because you moved your knight back there, your knight was threatening his bishop, and his bishop literally only had one move to go. And I think this was a blunder by the computer, because he should have just left his bishop there. Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. He should have left his bishop there, because then you would have taken his bishop with your knight, and he would have taken your knight with his pawn. Now you get a free bishop.
Because I take it with my pawn.
Because you take it with your pawn.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm...
Because that is a free piece.
Right here. That's what I'm doing.
Yep. Because unless you can think of a reason why you wouldn't do that.
Oh, so he just took one of my pawns with his bishop.
Which is fine, because I'm shocked that pawn lasted that long. But you do now want to move your knight.
This one?
Yeah.
Where?
You can put it to... So it really only has two real moves. God, you could put it in h3, but that seems dumb. D3 is being threatened. What pieces are threatening D3? Why wouldn't you move your knight there? I think those are the questions I should be asking.
Well, couldn't he take my knight? If I move, so here, right? If I move here, right? Can't the queen just take the knight? Is that a move he would make?
It is not a move
Not
he would
because
make,
my pawn could...
Yes.
My pawn could take his queen, and that would be dumb.
But there's also another piece that's threatening that square.
The bishop, my bishop.
Incorrect.
What other piece is threatening that square that's not a pawn or a bishop?
Well, you just said it.
My queen?
No. What of his pieces are threatening that square? What other piece would take your knight if you moved it there?
His pawn.
His pawn, correct.
So
it is always smarter to take with a pawn than any other piece, because trading pawns is like nothing.
Right.
But you don't want to lose a big piece to something like that.
Right.
So that means you have really two options to move your knight.
Okay.
So if you want to click on it again, it gives you that nice little
Hooray.
where it wants to go. So of those moves, if you know that you need to get that knight out of there, what moves do you have that have the least repercussions?
Well, I don't necessarily want to move it to g4 because then, well, I could, because I wouldn't be threatened necessarily by his queen, because then my pawn could take the queen, and that's really dumb, right?
Correct.
I don't want to go back in the corner.
Correct.
So I don't want to go to that back row. So I'm trying to move out. So really, what?
No, I was just reading chat.
Mm-hmm. So really, my only option is h3, right?
No, you were onto something better before. You even talked it out.
Well, I was talking out that I don't want to move to the back row.
Right.
So that's off. I don't want to move to D3,
Right.
right? Because that's a pawn is going to take me there.
Right.
Um, I don't. I guess I could move here.
So the second thing you want to think about when you're thinking about placements is not just what will take your pieces, but what can your piece do from those locations. So if you move your knight there, what can it do in following moves?
Well, if I move my knight to G4,
Yes.
it sets it up to take his knight unless he moves it.
Correct.
Or to take his bishop
Correct.
unless he moves it. So it's a good move.
So it turns into either a knight trade or you get a free bishop. Well, not a free bishop. It turns into a knight trade or a knight bishop trade
Okay,
because he will inevitably take it with his queen.
right. But I would be able to take more pieces first.
Yeah.
Oh, the computer liked that move. And he moved. Why did he just move his pawn?
I don't know. That's obnoxious and I hate it. Because now you're sort of forced to move that knight.
Which is what he wants, right?
I don't think so, because that pawn's just sort of sitting out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what that move is about.
Okay, so we're moving over to my A knight. And I don't want to move it here because then it leaves it open for this pawn and the rook, right?
Correct.
But I definitely want to move it or he's going to take it the next move with this pawn.
Correct.
And if I move it here, if I do that move, he can take it with his bishop, but that would be silly because then I can just take his bishop with my bishop.
Correct.
And my bishop would be protected because that's my pawn.
Yep.
And his pawn couldn't touch me.
No, that pawn right now is sort of dead in the water.
This pawn?
Your C4 pawn, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The only thing he's doing, well, he is serving an important role because right now he is keeping that rook from moving.
Aaron says if the bishop moves out the way of d6, then the knight moves to d1. His queen takes that knight. That frees your queen to move to d1. Checkmate.
See, this is what I talk about in terms of thinking too far ahead, because he's right. If those moves played out that way, he's 100% correct. But as we've seen, this computer doesn't do that, and so
Right.
it's very hard to think that far ahead.
Right.
Because whatever move you're going to take right now could be completely thrown off if this guy decides to do something stupid, like move a random freaking pawn.
Right.
So this is why I always sort of caution. Well, I don't always. I caution you. So I've been watching a lot of I can't remember the name. Some grandmaster. Maybe he's not a grandmaster. He's a master. He's a 2,500 chess rating guy who does lessons, and he's been doing stuff with Northern Lion. And listening to him talk about chess is super interesting because he doesn't. He really warns people away from thinking too far ahead for that exact reason. Because like when he's critiquing his games, he's like, he really only ever predicts 2 moves ahead, and he doesn't do any farther than that. Because inevitably, when you do that, your opponent, if your opponent sees what you're doing, like all of your plans are thrown out the window, and then you have to completely reformulate a plan. And so it's a lot more about sort of thinking. I don't want to say off the cuff, but thinking more, not thinking too far ahead. And so while Aaron's prediction is correct, if all of those moves played out, it's mate in 4-4. That's assuming that it plays out that way.
Okay, so back to.
And so it's a little better just to think short term. So yeah, so moving your knight to c4 or c5 is dangerous because it does set it up for his bishop, and you could end up trading, which isn't terrible. But one of the things that that guy warns about is trying not to simplify your opponent too much. And because as you remove pieces, you're simplifying either your or their side of the board, which can be either a good thing or a bad thing. Actually, right now it's probably a good thing because he's already down a lot. Like you are pretty much guaranteed to win this at this point, as long as you don't blunder.
Oops. Well, that happened.
Misclicks, yay!
That's what I did. You warned me.
Oh, but the computer liked it, so.
Oh, well, good.
So that worked. What did it think was best? Bishop to what?
E5.
E5. Bishop to E5. Oh, it wanted you to take the knight.
Oh, with my bishop.
Yeah. Again, strange move.
So, because if I take the bishop, doesn't that leave his queen? But then he wouldn't do that because it's guarded by my pawn. But the pawn can only take diagonally, right?
Yeah. So taking that knight means whatever you take that knight with is going to die, because now that knight's guarded by two pieces.
Yeah, the bishop and the, excuse me, I'm the queen. I was choking on my own spit. That's great.
So I would almost, I don't quite know how this is going to play out, but I would consider moving your knight. So it's good that your knight ended up slipping where it did, because I would actually move him to D5, because that sets you up to take that pawn. And if you can eliminate that pawn, not only does it set you up to eliminate that pawn, it also sets you up to force him to move his queen.
So this move?
Yeah, because it puts him in a position to do two things. It sets him up to take that pawn, his F4 pawn, which is one of the pieces that's guarding his other knight. You could also take the pawn and threaten the. Oh, that's a pretty decent move, though.
What?
I didn't see that till you clicked that.
Aaron says I would take the trade of G4 and E5. G4.
So he wants you to trade your G4 knight with his knight, which then
right on.
It's a little bit of a sticky trade because you're going to end up.
He's going to take my knight with his bishop.
You're going to lose. So here's why I don't think that's a good idea. Because in a good game, you're going to lose a knight. He'll lose a knight. You'll lose a knight. And then you're going to end up either having to move your bishop.
Yeah, to take his bishop, which sets it up.
Because he's not going to use his bishop. He's going to use a pawn.
Oh, right on. He's totally going to use a pawn. And then
So it's going to be your knight to his knight, his pawn to your knight, and then you have a choice. You can take his pawn with your bishop and then lose your bishop, or run your bishop away because that means his pawn's threatening your bishop.
So I'm just going to take his pawn over here.
So I would actually just take his pawn. Yeah.
So, okay.
So those are the sort of moves that are sort of that obvious grouping. What is he doing?
I don't know. He moved his rook over.
Where are you going, rook? That was stupid. Because that totally just leaves his bishop open with no guarding. Right? Am I missing something?
Yeah, but then his queen will just take my knight, right?
How?
Oh, I don't. Oh, she can move anywhere.
So which knight do you think you're taking that bishop with?
Oh, I thought I was taking him with this.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you took his bishop with your knight, what is attacking your knight?
Can't the queen then come gobble me up?
So you have to move on straight lines.
Oh.
And you can only move in one direction at a time.
But see, that's not true either, because pawns take things diagonally.
With the exception of pawns and knights.
And bishops move diagonally only. So you can't.
But that's still a straight line.
But it's not. It's diagonally.
Which is a straight line.
No, it's not rank and file.
I didn't say that. I said it was a straight line.
It's not a straight line.
It is absolutely a straight line.
We will agree to disagree.
So right click and drag on that bishop and just like move it on a diagonal.
What? This
It
bishop?
doesn't matter. Just pick a bishop. That is a straight line.
It's diagonal.
It is a diagonal line, but it is also a straight line. Straight does not mean up, down, left, right. Straight just means there are no curves or angles in a line. Mathematically.
I will mathematically your butt. So I'm taking his bishop, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because there's nothing, because it's completely unprotected. This is also sort of a weird.
Oh, and this retreated with his bishop, with his
Which
with his knight. Parts.
Which was smart. Nope, that was stupid. Why would you do that?
Yeah, he retreated so I wouldn't take it.
Yes, that is why he did that. But it gave you a very interesting opportunity. What is that opportunity? It's a big one. It's a game-winning one.
Oh,
So just analyze your pieces and where they can move and what pieces they can take.
well, my d6 bishop can take this pawn.
Yep.
And he would be protected because his knight can't do anything, right?
Correct.
So that's
It's not technically protected, but it does mean that nothing can attack it. A protected piece means that it's being protected by another piece.
Did he leave his queen open?
He left his queen completely open.
So I can take his queen, right?
You can take his queen.
That's really dumb.
Trading a knight for a queen. And he didn't take it with his king. What is going on?
Well, why would he move his pawn like that?
I don't know. At this point, you're on your own because I think you got this. I don't have to do anything.
Like, so I isn't. Oh, but his king isn't in check yet, right?
Correct.
Because there's not a move. Because I don't want to move my knight because he would take my knight with his king.
Why he should have taken his knight with your king on that last move,
right? Should I move my queen?
So I'm not going to help you.
Oh,
if
well,
you have questions, I will answer questions. I'll answer mechanical questions. But like, you don't need help on this anymore. I would caution you from moving your queen to h4 though. And why would I caution you to do that?
Because his knight could take it.
Correct.
What?
It's reading Aaron's Knights of the Round Table. It's absolutely true. This was a weird game because like your rook sort of got trapped and never made it out, which is weird.
Excuse me. And so what's going through my mind right now is what my best move is. Because I know obviously that I want to win the game, right? And I can't do that with this knight, and I don't want to move this knight. So I should castle now, castle for the hell of it. And I don't want to move this knight, right?
It's not that you don't want to, it's just that it doesn't really do
It's not
anything.
necessary. Oh, there's something going on outside. Oh, I know. You tell him, Pooh. Serious business here at the Tacular household. And so would it benefit me to move my d6 bishop and take this pawn? So this is the move I'm looking at.
I would rate that as a good move.
Because his knight can't do anything.
Yeah.
So why did he move his knight there?
Yes. You are asking questions.
Well, I don't want to move my bishop with because he could take it with his knight. Right? Either one. Correct.
I mean, you could, but you could just trade because your knight's protecting H2 as well. The invincible knight of E2. It's about right. It's hanging out there. Hey guys.
Well,
It's like the ally. It's like the ally standing right next to the German outpost, going, "How's it going? I'm here."
or one of the people hanging out on
Danger zone.
no, like one of the people waiting by the watchtowers to, light the fires.
Mm. Well, but the joke is that he's behind enemy lines. Like the watchtower guys are in their home area.
Oh. And it doesn't make sense to try and get my queen over there because he could take my queen with his knight, correct?
He could take it at D1, correct. I mean, you could also just take his knight.
Oh. With what? Oh,
I don't know. With what?
with my knight. Right? 1, 2. Yeah. Can he take it? No, he can't take it with my rook because rook can only move rank and file.
He doesn't have any. Oh, no. Yeah. Yep. Correct. Correct.
And pawns only take on the diagonal.
Correct.
Well, the computer like that and he moved his rook back. Is he going to try and can he castle at this point?
He cannot castle. Once you move your king, you cannot castle.
Oh. Right. So should I move my queen there? What?
So I'm going to tell you that the D1, 2, 3, and 4 in the D file are all guarded
By his.
by his pieces.
Okay.
Can you tell me which ones?
Well, the rook could take me in D1.
Correct.
D2, his F3 knight could take it.
Correct.
D3. Now, does the knight? Oh, his pawn could take it.
Correct.
And 4, his F3 knight could take it.
Correct. So your queen's sort of in a weird spot.
Right.
You could start a pawn march just to get him out there.
A missed win? Where was my missed win? B5?
What?
Queen to B6? Why would I move to, I can't, to B6?
It just wants you to get your queen out there.
Oh.
Like it says it's a miss win. When you actually look at the analysis, it'll say like win in 5 or win in 6. And this is the problem with the computer because it makes a bunch of assumptions based on best moves that aren't necessarily indicative of what the other person is doing.
Right.
You could set your queen up to take his knight, I guess, just to get her out there.
So I should move her to the 6?
No,
I don't think so.
I wouldn't. But you can still set her up to take to take his knight. There is a spot that is safe.
Is it taking the pawn and then?
There is a safe spot to take his knight on the next turn.
Yeah, I'm looking at this turn. So you're telling me I should set up a play.
Yes. But why don't you want to move your queen to h4?
Because the knight could take me on the next turn.
Correct. So where's the only other position that the queen can move to set up a take on the knight?
D5?
Correct.
He's just moving his rook around. What's his rook doing?
Yeah, I don't know. But you already dictated your move on this turn, so.
What's his pawn gonna do? Is his pawn in line for check? No, because he can only move forward.
But you do have clear line of sight to his rook. I would ignore that pawn at this point. If it moves one more, you can just take it.
Well, what this? Oh.
Oh, it's checkmate in one. Boy, don't even bother with the rook. That's hilarious.
Where? What?
So this is where it gets a little complicated because you have, so right now where the king is, all spaces around him are threatened by one of 3 pieces. 4 pieces. Wow. You don't necessarily see it because you're not looking at every piece at the same time. But
Right.
let's mark this out. So click on your knight.
Which knight?
Doesn't matter. So like highlight where he's gonna play. Like left clicking. Now right click the spots that are adjacent to the king. These are the spaces that knight threatens. No, not all of them. The spaces, just the spaces that piece threatens.
Okay.
Now click on your queen. Now highlight the spaces adjacent to the king that piece threatens. There's one more.
I don't know.
Yeah. Now click your other knight. Highlight pieces, like highlight areas that piece threatens. That are adjacent to the king. Sorry.
Yeah, those are the ones.
Keep saying that. The one below it is not adjacent to the king. Adjacent means directly next to.
Right.
Either on the lines or the diagonals.
Right. Oh, so
then,
you're saying I could move farts.
And then look at your bishop. Well, I wasn't done doing what I was doing.
Look at my bishop. This bishop or this bishop?
Yeah. No. And highlight the spaces that are adjacent to the king that are threatened.
Well, I could take his rook.
You could take his rook.
Well, there aren't any. Well, this one,
checkmate.
sorry.
Correct.
So this, that.
Yeah.
And he couldn't move anywhere, and I could take him with another piece. Well, he could move, but that would just set him up for me to take him with another piece.
Yes. So you have mate. So this move you have mate. which piece do you need to move where? Because there's really only
Right.
one move that executes in a mate this turn. Everything else is mate next turn.
Would it be the bishop move?
It
No,
is not
because
the bishop.
it's not the bishop move, because then it's, well, no, his rook can only move rank and file, so his rook can't do anything, right? But he could take the bishop with the king,
The
but that
bishop
would
could
be
do
dumb.
it. Nope, you're right. You can do the. Oh no, it would be dumb, but he can still take the rook because nothing is threatening. Because the rook is the only piece threatening d2.
Right.
So moving your bishop to d2 just gets it taken by the king.
Right. But couldn't I then just take him with the queen?
You would have to move the queen to put him in check. So think about where those pieces are. Think about if you move a piece, who is it guarded by, and what the subsequent move would be from white. The goal here is to move one piece, one space, or one move, so that the king can't go anywhere, and that piece isn't going to be taken this turn, this turn. And there's only one space that accomplishes that.
Well, I'm glad you see it.
Well, this is the learning adventure, right?
Is it my knight here? Because if I move my knight here, even if he did take it, my queen would put himself in check.
Right. But your knight does not put the king into check there.
Why not?
Because that's not how knights work.
Well, why not?
I'll give you a hint. It's the
No.
queen.
It's the queen?
The queen is the piece you should move.
Well,
now think about it's the supporting pieces that you
oh,
have.
I should move her into E.
You should move her into E, but not E3.
Why would I move her into E2? Because then he can just hop on me.
Who is protecting E2?
Oh, my knight.
Your C3 knight.
Yeah,
So if your queen moves into E2,
I win.
close that window real quick. So because you moved your queen into E2, that means the queen is now putting the king into check. The queen is threatening any place that the king could move, so the king cannot move into F1 or 2, D1 or 2. It can't take the queen because the queen is protected by the C3 knight, and there's nothing that rook or those pawns can do to block it. So that means it is checkmate.
Because there's no... Okay, so checkmate is there are no other moves that the opponent can make to win.
There's no other moves that can stop the queen from being taken or the king from being taken next turn, technically.
Okay.
And so the idea is that you don't actually execute that move. The move of taking the king is never actually executed. The game stops when there is no subsequent moves that wouldn't result in the king's capture.
Interesting. Chess is weird.